From getting a lucrative $800 million offer to keeping close tabs on what's happening in the league, here's the real reason why Tiger Woods will join LIV Golf. I mean, it's very hard to turn down almost $1 billion, which of course is also the reason why so many other top golfers have left the PGA Tour for the Saudi League. After all, the truth is that no matter how loyal you are to your organization, there's always some amount of money that's going to persuade you to switch allegiances. We saw it with the likes of Phil Mickelson and Cameron Smith, and we're going to eventually see it with Tiger Woods. Well, at least that's what the LIV CEO Greg Norman would be hoping for, because as of right now, the 47-year-old hasn't actually accepted any offers from the league. Now, back in August 2022, Norman spilled the beans on a potential offer for Woods, which, according to him, was mind-blowingly enormous and near high 9 digits. Several other reports around the same time also mentioned how the deal was apparently around the $700 to $800 million mark. Though, while this would have been a life-changing amount of money for most golfers, it just was not enough to convince the 15-time major winner. Of course, his loyalty to the PGA Tour came into play as well. But we've also got to remember that Woods is already a billionaire, something that may have played a role in his refusal. There's one interesting bit about this supposed deal, though, and that's the fact that this offer was made before LIV Golf had even started. Oh, and yeah, that's before Phil Mickelson joined as well. So, with no top golfers in the league, it sort of made sense for Tiger to not join something new and daring like that. A lot has changed since then, though. And not only is LIV Golf one of the biggest entities in the sport right now, but it's arguably giving the PGA Tour some really tough competition. I mean, the situation is very different now, and maybe if the offer is slightly better than it was previously, it'd be tempting for someone like Woods. Oh, and if you think that the Breakaway League has stopped pursuing the PGA Tour legend after the initial offer, think again. Because from the looks of things, they're still very much on board with the idea of signing Tiger. In fact, according to some leaked documents about the league's plans called Project Wedge, Woods' name was specifically mentioned alongside 11 other top golfers that they're trying to sign. Not to mention, the same documents also claimed that LIV Golf would be deemed a failure by the investors and would barely break even within the next few years if it fails to sign some of these stars. So, you best believe there's still all hands on deck to bring the guy on board and become a superpower in the sport. That said, there's another reason why Woods might be tempted to join. After all, it's not like he's competing on the PGA Tour these days. Well, he kinda is, but you know what I mean. Ever since his horrific accident in 2021, Tiger's golfing appearances have been few and far between. In fact, other than a few majors and a rare appearance at the Genesis Invitational, he hasn't played much golf at all. And of course, he's already said that going forward, his aim is to only compete at the 4 majors and see how things are after that. So, if he's not taking part in a PGA Tour event, then there's not much point in him staying there, right? Like, he might as well come over to LIV Golf and make some extra cash while he's at it. I mean, he'd still be eligible for the majors and his schedule won't really get affected. Not to mention the 54-hole format might actually benefit him, since he won't have to play for 4 entire days. You know, with his injury condition and all that. Now, I get that he's already expressed his dislike for how LIV does things with its shotgun starts and shorter tournaments, but you've got to remember, he said this back in summer 2022, when his own prospects of playing more events were looking good. During his press conference at Hero World Challenge at the end of that year, however, Woods seemed a lot less opposed to the idea of LIV Golf, and went as far as to say that he'd like the animosity between the league and the PGA Tour to end. Oh, and things have changed massively yet again, because his latest withdrawal from the Masters will force him to take even more time off. Now earlier, Woods was planning to take part in all 4 majors in 2023, but after his ankle injury flared up again on day 3 at Augusta National, he's been pretty much ruled out for the rest of the year. Yep, Tiger's plantar fasciitis got so bad that he had to get surgery ASAP. And even though the procedure fused 2 of his bones together, which will apparently eliminate the pain, it's also going to inhibit his playing ability. Why? Well, you see, Woods is just not going to have as much movement in his ankle joint anymore, which of course will affect his swing. Sure, it may not be his dominant side, but it's still significant enough to make an impact. What's more, the recovery time for the injury is also relatively long, meaning he's going to miss upcoming majors like the US Open, the PGA Championship, and the Open Championship. In fact, some reports say that he won't be back until the 2024 Masters. So again, is there any point in him trying to stick with the PGA Tour at this time? Or is he better off just sitting back and making $1 billion without the weight of expectations? Although, I'm sure making Woods move away from the tour won't be easy. I mean, he is still the most valuable asset they've got, and that's not something they're going to take lightly. For starters, he's the most popular player in the history of the sport, and even though he didn't play for the majority of last season, he was still the #1 golfer on the Player Impact Program, which is the PGA Tour's way of rewarding players who generate the most positive interest in the PGA Tour. Plus, whenever he turns up at some event to play golf, you can bet that the tickets are going to sell out like hotcakes. That being said, perhaps the most important aspect of Woods' presence on the PGA Tour is his leadership. You see, the 47-year-old has grown into this new role where, even when he's not playing, he's still making a significant contribution to the direction of the PGA. Take the Tour's new schedule with its designated events, for example. Who came up with this new strategy? Of course, it was Tiger Woods alongside Rory McIlroy in that big PGA members meeting in 2022. Not to mention, he's also been a staunch supporter of everything the Tour's done, and doesn't hesitate to speak up whenever anyone tries to criticize the PGA. In fact, at times, his defense of the Tour and attacks on LIV Golf got so aggressive that Greg Norman even called him a mouthpiece for the PGA Tour. Like, sure, he's as detached from the circuit as he's ever been right now, but that doesn't totally eliminate the past love he's had for them. Though at the same time, distance can sometimes change things. And, well, it looks like Woods isn't totally opposed to the idea of moving elsewhere either. Now, if you remember, the biggest reservation that Tiger had about LIV Golf was the fact that it didn't let younger players create legacies like Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, or Jack Nicklaus. But at 47, that's not really an issue for him anymore. The dude's won everything and has seen it all. So moving elsewhere won't ruin his legacy. Besides, let's be fair, his controversies and scandals have already inflicted all the damage that could have possibly been done. Oh, and he's got his eyes on LIV Golf too. In fact, Taylor Gooch claims that Woods is very much thinking about a potential move. Speaking on the For the People podcast, the LIV member went into detail about a recent encounter with Tiger at the Masters, and apparently, during a morning warm-up at Augusta National, Woods was right next to Gooch, so naturally they started talking. The PGA legend asked Taylor if he's with Bubba Watson's Range Goats team now, which of course was surprising. After all, this would mean that he's actually paying attention to what's happening at LIV Golf. But that was just the beginning, because after that initial exchange, Tiger also mentioned how the Saudi League members were going to Adelaide for their event after the Masters, and how there was some great golf there. What's more, Gooch said that the 47-year-old then went on this tangent about competing in Singapore and how there's a great hotel casino there that Taylor should definitely visit. Like, I won't bore you with the details, but you get the point that Gooch was making here. The reality is that most golf fans who exclusively watch the PGA Tour wouldn't have been able to tell where LIV Golf was going after the Masters weekend. And yet, Tiger knew all about their plans, meaning he's paying attention to their every move. Now, whether that's to devise a counter-strategy for the PGA Tour or to actually join LIV himself, well, that remains to be seen. So, from keeping close tabs on what's happening in the league to getting a lucrative $800 million offer, that was the real reason why Tiger Woods will join LIV Golf.